All right, so moving to our other two operations, multiplying and dividing real numbers. So the reason I want to go through this is I really want to make sure that we have a good review of these operations so that we are comfortable moving on and solving equations using these operations, because these operations are going to be used every day of your life for the rest of your life probably, and I mean every day of math class for the rest of your math career, however long that may be. So these are good tools to have so that you're not always relying on your calculator. Now, calculator is a good tool, but I still want you to be able to kind of solve some problems on your own and be able to do at least a little bit of mental math. So multiplying real numbers, basically, if the numbers have different signs, the product is negative, all right? If they have different signs, the product is negative. If they have the same sign, the product is positive, all right? So positive times a positive is positive, negative times a negative is positive. So before, it depended on the signs of the numbers with adding, subtracting. Multiplying, I think, is a little bit easier to follow because all you need to know is how to follow the signs. So in problem 4, I'm going to go through this fairly quickly, and if you're not great with your times tables, I know it's fine to use a calculator, but just try to do these without a calculator, just to practice, okay? So in this first one, 12 times negative 8. They are opposite signs. So I know my result is, my product is going to be negative. So 12 times 8 is negative 96, okay? Part B, they're both positive. They're the same sign. 24 times a half, it's just going to be positive 12, right? For C, multiplying fractions, that's an important thing. You're going to be multiplying fractions in the next chapter, so I'd get used to it. First, I notice they're opposite signs. So, result's going to be negative. For fractions, when you multiply the top by the top. 3 times 1 is, not recording there, 3. Multiply the bottom by the bottom. 4 times 2 is 8. Okay, so just a quick refresher on multiplying fractions. And then D, negative 3 squared. We got to remember what squared means. That means negative 3 times negative 3, which would be 9. And if you're really stuck and you're putting this into a calculator, just make sure you're putting those parentheses around it when you see parentheses, okay? That is an important thing. This is not 6, all right? This is not negative 9. We've got to make sure we know this means negative 3 times negative 3. So we got it. Go through those. Pause the video, and then check your answers with me after you have worked through them. Okay, so just to quickly run through these, what is each product? Part A, I knew it was negative because they're opposite signs. 6 times 15 is negative 90. Part B, it's a decimal. 12 times 0.2, they're both positive, so my product is positive. I think of 12 times 2 is 24, and I just move the decimal place over once to the left, all right? C, it's negative, opposite signs. Top times the top, 21. Bottom times the bottom, 50. And then D, negative 4 times negative 4, positive 16. So pretty straightforward. Hopefully, this is, again, feeling kind of like review, but I still like going through it just to make sure that we're all solid in just the basics of this, okay? Now, problem 5, simplifying square roots. This is undoing squaring something, so unsquaring something, basically. So in part A, see how that negative's on the outside? My result's going to be negative, okay? And for me to evaluate that, 25. What times itself is 25? That's 5, okay? That's just 5, right? And then the next one's got plus or minus, or positive or negative, so I'm just going to include that in my answer if I'm given that. And then I think about simplifying the top and simplifying the bottom. So I'm going to ask myself, what times itself is 4? That's 2. What times itself is 49? That's 7. So positive or negative 7. 2 over 7 for that one, sorry, 2 over 7. So if you have a fraction, simplify the top, simplify the bottom, okay, when you square root. So again, real quick, try those got it's, and then check your answers with me in a second. All right, so the got it's pretty straightforward, same as the last example. What times itself is 64? That's 8. If you want to check with your calculator, it's fine, but I just like you guys to know some of these basic perfect squares, okay? Part B, what times itself is 16? That's 4. And just that positive, negative, just get used to seeing that. We're going to cover that more later this year, but just I'll explain that a little bit later on, okay? Next, negative 11. 11 times 11 is 121, and I keep the negative on the outside. D, what times itself is 1? It's just 1. What times itself is 36? That's 6. And then finally, dividing real numbers. A lot like multiplying, except, with the signs and everything is the same. We're just dividing. I mean, that's the main thing. Division involving 0 is an important thing. If I take 0 divided by anything, except for 0, my result is 0. But if I divide by 0, that's undefined. So you can't divide anything by 0, just to keep that in mind, okay? So problem 6, skydiver's elevation changes by negative 3,600 feet because he's falling in 4 minutes after his parachute opens, or her parachute opens, all right? What is the average change in the elevation each minute? So this is just a simple rate problem, all right? So we're finding the rate he's falling, he or she is falling. So I would take negative 3,600 divided by 4. And it's got the same kind of properties as multiplication, opposite signs. So it's negative. 36 divided by 4 is 9. So the skydiver is falling by 900 feet each minute, all right? So the average rate of change, okay? So when the got it, pause the video, try it, and then check with me after you're done working through it. Okay, so quick one, just an average for 5 withdrawals. Take your total amount. You're withdrawing it in 5 equal amounts. You're withdrawing $72 at a time. Okay, problem 7, dividing fractions. So this one is another one we're going to have to be used to. We're going to be doing this in the next chapter for sure. So dividing fractions. When I divide fractions, you think about it as multiplying by what's called the reciprocal. So I'd take 3/4 divided by negative 2/3. I would write it as multiplying by negative 3/2. And this whole fraction, each of these fractions are negative, so I know my result is going to be positive. And we know how to multiply by fractions. We practiced that before. 3 times 3 is 9. 4 times 2 is 8. So 9/8. Pretty straightforward, all right? So I'd like you guys to try the next 2. Pause the video, check with me, and I'll give you your further instructions. Okay, so a quick explanation of the got it. I'm multiplying by the reciprocal, and the order does matter. 3/4 was being divided, so that still goes first, and I'm multiplying by the reciprocal of negative 5/2. So I know my result's negative because I have opposite signs, so this becomes negative 3/10. And in part B, you're using your solution from the last problem to explain a question. So is that equivalent to negative 3/4 divided by 5/2? I would say yes. The end result is still negative, right? Ooh, negative. See if I can spell at all. Negative. So if we think about this, opposite signs, they're negative. Same signs, they're positive, but it's like they're being multiplied on the outside by a -1, okay? So yeah, that result is still the same, all right? So this would be a good chance to move ahead. Get a little bit of practice with this. Fine if you use the calculator on a lot of them, but I still want you to have that idea of how to know if a solution is right or not, or if a difference, a quotient, a product, what those are and how to do them with a little bit of mental math. Because mental math is a really useful skill in a lot of ways, all right? So try to do as many as you can with mental math, and if you get stuck, obviously check your answers, do that with the practice, but yeah, try building those mental math skills on the practice.